Hello there. Last night I went to see the new Equalizer film and now I want to tell you about it. For those unaware of the Equalizer franchise, it follows a former government agent called Robert McCall. McCall is a dangerous man who spends his time exacting vengeance against evil men on behalf of the innocent. This newest film is the third movie of the franchise and it was written by Richard Wenk, Michael Sloan, and Richard Lindheim. It was directed by Antoine Fuqua. The story follows McCall as he recovers from a serious injury. He finds himself saved by a local Italian doctor and rests in the small town of Altamonte. The more time he spends there, the more he finds himself at peace. So when a group of gangsters shows up and starts threatening his tranquility, McCall finds himself at war with the mafia. To start off with, this film is a very simple action thriller. It doesn't have a lot of meaningful dialogue or character development. The story is as basic as a hero's journey can get. It starts off by showing us who Robert is and what he can do. He's a world-class assassin, and even at a ripe old age, he's still one of the deadliest people on the planet. The opening scene is literally his next victim walking through all of the carnage McCall wrought just to get to him, and it's a terrifying moment when all you can see is 30 dead bodies mutilated in different ways and lined up like a trail of twisted roses. Everything's dimly lit in an expensive mansion-type home, and when Denzel finally appears, it's like being dunked into a bucket of cold water. He delivers a frigid speech to his enemy with nothing but charm and class, and then executes every man in the room in a slick, fast-paced action sequence that ends in a brutal manner. It's super satisfying and acts as a great hook. Then we see Robert thrust into a rough situation and forced to bite his tongue as his new friends are terrorized by a group of gangsters. The film spends a bit of time introducing us to the people of Altamonte and the situation with the gangsters, and it gives us a brief introduction to Vincent and Marco Caranta, the two villains of the film. It does an okay job of making us like the people, and we get a lot of great scenic shots of the Italian coast accompanied by light classical music. Vincent and Marco are generic villains without much personality, and their gang is filled with even more generic henchmen. They're evil for evil's sake, and they go to extreme lengths when threatening the people of Altamonte. It's tough to watch them threaten the good people unopposed, but it sets the audience up with a bit of bloodlust toward the gangsters. McCall then goes full nightmare horror villain on the gangsters, and from that point on, the movie is basically a reverse horror film. We get shots of the gangsters walking around their base of operations in a terrified state before they're picked off one by McCall. Every time McCall appears in one of these horror action sequences, he's like an unstoppable ghost that rips through his enemies like paper. His kills against them are brutal, and they never stand a chance at any point in the film. It doesn't do a good job of character development, but it does serve up enough emotion to make investing in the story easy, and it does a good job of making the townspeople into sympathetic characters that you want Robert to help. The story doesn't quite make sense because it is about a one-man army who never makes mistakes, who knows everything, and who has an aimbot. He is the perfect soldier, and it's just not believable. Everything goes his way, even the things he doesn't know about. It gets truly ridiculous when the gangsters are even given a clean chance to kill him and don't because they're afraid of getting seen, even though they hung a man earlier in the film in broad daylight. He's also mystically quiet, despite not being a magical figure. More than a few times in the film, they manage to underestimate the amount of noise that would be made by Robert's actions, like him breaking glass or firing off a silenced gun. Those are both loud noises that would have alerted the other gangsters to his presence, but somehow they're quite muted in this film and don't give off realistic levels of noise. The general cast does a decent job of their roles, but there isn't much variation in their performances. The gangsters are all vicious and evil. Townsfolk joke with Robert, but are all good people, and the CIA and cops are all worker bees. No one really gets a unique character except for Denzel Washington as Robert McCall and Dakota Fanning, who appears about a third of the way into the film. Dakota Fanning plays a CIA agent who gets Robert's anonymous tip about some gangsters and shows up to help. Her character isn't important to the story, is only present for a few scenes, and serves as a connection to the previous films. She does an okay job of it, but doesn't get a chance to stand out. Denzel Washington is playing his usual charming badass role. He's good at bantering with the townsfolk and the gangsters, but when he needs to drop the niceties, he becomes a cold and harsh storm ready to flatten you. When he finally reveals his true self to the gangsters, he's almost inhuman in how he treats them, but it leads to some truly satisfying vengeance moments. It isn't a special performance for him, but he does it so well that it stands out. The visual journey is simple and easy to follow, and it has the advantage of taking place in a beautiful location. The shots of the coast, the scenery surrounding the town, and even the whitewashed walls of the city itself are impressive to look at. The city shines in the sunlight, and the entire time you find yourself thinking, what a relaxing place. Most of the movie is about Robert, the gangsters, and the townspeople interacting in the city and having tense arguments. When the gangsters are threatening people, they do a good job of capturing the fear of the townspeople and the vile nature of the men. And when Robert starts his campaign of horror against them, the film captures juicy scenes of the gangsters pissing themselves in fear. Most standout parts of the film are the action sequences in which McCall appears like a ghost that's haunting the men and he kills them one by one. The sequences are done like slasher-style horror moments with Robert appearing from the shadows and swiftly engaging in a brutal form of murder. There are stabbings, shootings, strangulations, impalements, and my favorite, the slow drug overdose. Sound-wise, the film has a lot of great atmosphere-setting tracks that are catchy to listen to, but they don't have much of an impact on the film. There are lots of classical instrumentals and other light, airy sounding music for the parts where Robert is enjoying the town. And whenever the gangsters show up, we get this menacing sounding track playing. It's a good theme and it sets the mood well, but like the rest of the film, it doesn't follow the story at all, and it never stands out. It ends up fading into the background and is easily forgotten. Overall, The Equalizer 3 is a decent action thriller with a generic story. Denzel Washington plays his usual charismatic killer who can flip a switch, and the action sequences are terrifying reverse slasher scenes of the good guy wiping out the villains. The music is nice to listen to and the visuals are well done. If you like action films, this one is decently entertaining. As for a rating, I'd give this film a 7 out of 10, and remember these are just my thoughts on the film. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Bye bye!